Hello and welcome to First Issues Weekly, the compilation of the weekly comic review show, First Issues Now. Every day you can check out the newest first issues released this week on First Issues Now, or weekly in a batch like this. I'm AJ Carey, the comic archivist, and these are the comic reviews released for the week of August 6th, 2025. Yes, there are a couple of comics I respectfully didn't cover that I know I should have, but I needed a light week this week. Got a website to work on. Oh hey, the first book at the top of the pile is a Wolverine book. Damn it. But it is done by Chris Claremont, which is generally a yay for X books, so we'll see how it goes. So let's what does that even mean? Let's dig into Wolverine by Chris Claremont #1, by Chris Claremont and Tom Riley, colors by Chris O'Halloran, and letters by VC's Clayton Cowles. Oh my god. This is a Wolverine book. Even if the X-Men are hardcore in this, so it's weird that it's called Wolverine. This is a little unfair, because this is actually a reprint from a comic available in the now $600 Marvel Paragon collection for Chris Claremont, which basically gives the best of Chris Claremont's X run, and Lord Almighty, I don't think I've made enough to even cover one comic for this show, so please share, engage, and join the Carry On Production Patreon so that Sam can at least see a reason to keep these going. Where was I outside of self-pity? Oh right, this is a reprint from that, but it is technically an all-new story. However, it also feels like it was written at the time, because this is basically a love letter to the era of X-Men that I grew up with. And honestly, it was actually probably my favorite storyline of the 80s. The Great Grand Japan Epic. Yes, it was Wolverine focused, but it thrilled me. And this is probably something I will call a 10 out of 10 must-own, easy without ever a pause, add some cheese to it. It doesn't need to be said by anyone ever that Chris Claremont is the guy who made X-Men what it is today. Everyone knows it. And he has been rocking the mutant world for the last 50 years. Yes, that's a bit of a mixed bag, but if you go to bat 1,000 times, you will not have a perfect average. But this is why he's considered the GOAT. He has a really great batting average. This isn't a let's continue it story. I mean, except I'm sure this was an idea scripted, at the very least plotted, in 1983, because this is a perfect distillation of what made the early 80s the best time to be an X fan. A quick summary. The story is that Wolverine is fighting Sabretooth in Japan, and we get everyone from the Wolverine book and the X book in there. Shadowcat is in her ninja mode. Yukio, Mariko, Storm with a mohawk, Lockheed, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Colossus, all of them make not technically minor appearances, but they do get a time to shine against the perpetually healing villain that is Sabretooth. It is spectacular. If you only know Claremont from the old hats like me, or just his legend status, you need this book. It is a perfect distillation of what makes everyone who's ever read that run love that run. While it does say Wolverine on it, there is a lot of character depth, even if they aren't the focal characters, as it should be. But I actually really also want to praise Tom Riley for the art on this. Because oh my god, I've never felt a comic feel so experimentally 80s and still be released by a mainstream publisher in the 2020s, even while also not feeling like a throwback in the slightest. Fun fact, I also actually picked up G.I. Joe #1 a year or so ago because his cover was that good looking. But anyways, well, this is a more personal comic to me. It is literally the nostalgia. It's like anytime someone tries to capture Bill Senowitz and the damn demon bear that's haunted my dreams ever since I was 4. You can't ever get that feeling again, even if you see something very similar to it. So when I tell you, dear listener, that Tom Riley was not only able to jump that hurdle, but he cleared it expertly, he blew it right the fuck up. Yes, you can say that I may be being extra mushy because I'm reading this at 4 a.m. I've been hopped up on sugar. I just finished singing for 4 hours. And after a hell of a week that has absolutely made me feel older than I really want to admit to myself, this truly made me feel something I legitimately cannot explain on a personal, deep level. It is the closest I've ever felt to I got to rewatch my favorite movie. I got to reread my favorite book. So my verdict is buy this now. It is a reprint from a collection that now mostly is on the secondhand market, so you're not getting it any other way. Unless you have $600. You can either have a Switch 2 or a dozen Chris Claremont comics. I know, it's a toughie. So it is technically a one-shot as well. But more importantly, it is a time capsule. For newer fans of X-Men who may have no idea the magic of why us ancient readers loved that era, and why maybe certain runs on the book feels terrible by comparison, this is a must-own. It truly, truly is. Oddly, that also means that I have both Wolverine #1s written by Chris Claremont, and I also think that means Tom Riley is a better artist than pre-Insanity Frank Miller. Wild. I already had my rant on Godzilla #1 that we respect all things Godzilla, from the silly Showa era to the random Zone Fighter stuff, and that continues with the Kaisei era over at IDW Publishing going on right now, which I did accidentally call the Heisei era in my Godzilla #1 review. I blame the letterer of Google Docs. Whatever, so this is Godzilla Escape the Dead Zone #1. Written by Ethan S. Parker and Griffin Sheridan, art by Pablo Tunica, and letters and design by Nathan Wittick. I had no idea what to expect going into this. I mean, it's about a half kaiju guy in a Godzilla nuked Seattle. But the second we got past the exposition dump for the setting, opening up on a little dilapidated open-faced cantina, and then the Wanderer gives a jab about how his tail is actually mostly for balance, I'm hooked. Then you have the Wanderer, the half-kaiju dude, go out and tame one of the smaller kaijus to ride through the desert, and ending with a mysterious girl who can control beasts and kaiju and everything. I'm invested. This is all my jam. I brought it up in Ghost Pepper, but I am a sucker for desert punk. Yes, you can probably go through all my vids and find out that I'm actually a sucker for most everything as long as it's fun or well written. But when it comes to post-apocalyptic old new tech, rusty corrugated tin, and sand that I absolutely would be dying in if I had ever had to go back, I'm a happy camper. You add in mutated humans, kaiju both big and small, and a loner needing to protect a little girl for the ongoing premise? Yes. All of this? Yes. I think the biggest strength of this first issue is a fantastic setup, with the world, the Wanderer, the monsters, and everything. Because yeah, it's just that damn good. And the art. While Sam said that it was a bit too loose and sketchy for her liking, it is an art style that not everyone's gonna like. I'm not one of those people. I'm a rebel, Donnie. A loader. And I find it absolutely amazing to convey the chaotic nature of the world and the characters. Kaiju fights shouldn't feel stock is kind of what I'm getting at, so it's a top notch, and I am hooked going forward. So, my verdict is absolutely buy it. Buy it means that it should not only be on your digital pull list, but you should definitely have a physical floppy for it too. There's only a couple of variant covers, so I say go for the gold and collect it all. Plus, the Kaisei era of IDW Godzilla is shaping up to be worth everything coming out, being a must-own. I have no lead into this. It was on the stack, although I do dig the cover, and I do like Jordan Clark's Aquaman work, so there is some goodwill going into Ancestral Recall #1, written by Jordan Clark, art by Atagan Ilhan, colors by Pippa Boland, and letters by Rob Steen. Okay, the short of the story is, well, actually I'll go with the dust jacket for it. Black history. For painter Melvin Waring, it's an actual superpower. When Melvin's wife mysteriously disappears, he must call on the most important black figures of all time to help him in his search. With a premise like that, I have no idea what that meant, but it's actually really cool how it laid out. First, I do want to bring up that there is actually another character that plays a major role. His Korean-Puerto Rican neighbor, the adorable Mirren, and her animatronic kawaii-sin panda Petunia. I have to bring her up first before we get into everything else, because without her, Melvin's plot kinda has him becoming one of those homeless guys screaming about how Jesus is already here to eat everyone's hostess fruit pies. She actually is a photographer and even talks to him about how people keep disappearing in the neighborhood as well, so it's not just a random abduction. Again, this is actually a really great setup. As for the superpower, well, I'll be honest. When I read the solicit copy, I was worried that it would turn into a history lesson more than a proper book that has historical characters. Not that there's anything wrong with just stopping a book and teaching about Black history or history in any sense, but it could also easily diminish the book to stop and just have a Xavier Riddle, here's the famous person moment, but it doesn't do that. See, when his wife does eventually go missing, he is teleported to the Mind Palace or wherever we're calling it to see Sam Marlowe, the Jamaican immigrant and first black private eye in LA, who is famously, or should be more famously, known as the inspiration for both Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe. It's a fascinating history just on that front alone. And then he uses Sam's skills for him to try and find his wife. I think. He does get found by Mirren later in the trash. However, later on, to end the book, he does actually run afoul of, assumably the henchmen of who took his wife, which happen to be robots. And then we get the action scene where Melvin channels Jean-Louis Michel, one of the greatest swordsmen in France during the 19th century, and, on a very personal note, the reason my blood brother and I learned to fence in the early 90s. And so Melvin kicks all the robots' butts with a lead pipe. Those are two very different ways to showcase two very different historical figures that are important and rarely really spoken of. It is actually probably the best foot forward in both showing Melvin does have some sort of power, as well as going, hey, here's two really cool figures you should actually know the history of. Without throwing in those facts, it is still a great book, and that actually just makes it greater. The only thing I would ding this for is that while it is a standard first issue length, it kinda ends somewhat abruptly, where it feels like there needed to be a little bit more. But, on the other hand, I don't want to ding it for that, because what is in this issue makes me want more. It develops a fascinating vibe that I just can't say anything less than positive about. So that would mean that my verdict is, pull it. Pull it means that it definitely should be put onto your pull list, digitally or physically. I'd honestly say both, but I am a glutton for double paying. I personally cannot wait to see where this story goes. I think the last time I read a Hellboy book, it was actually a little bit ago when I was rereading to follow along with Comics Collective when they were covering the earlier Hellboy books. Yes, let's start this episode with a plug to them because they're all awesome, especially Anne. Anyways, this is Hellboy in Love number 1. Script by Mike Mignola and Christopher Golden, art and colors by Alex Nadeau, and letters by Clem Robbins. Hellboy and archaeologist Anastasia Bransfield trek to Iceland for evidence of a seemingly impossible network of occultists. But a fresh dig site holds answers that come at a steep and risky price. I know it seems a little easy to go with the solicit, but this is honestly just a setup issue. Okay, I'm going to be a little bit more honest about me and Hellboy. I like Hellboy as a whole. When it's a graphic novel or an anthology where it is a complete story. I love him as a character. I love the world he inhabits. I love it all. However, single issues I've always been a little bit more ambivalent about. Some start with a bang, so that first issue is a wild ride. It gets you invested, and other times the whole story needs to be there, and I think, outside of maybe those that are already caught up and ready for the newest installment, that is what this is. Again, the writing is good for what it is, but you're essentially getting the inciting incident in the last couple of pages of this. And there is even an argument to be made that the relationship, or the non-let's raise a witch side, is a bit anemic too. Again, not that any of it's bad in reading it, just that there's not a lot here. Especially for new readers, this could be great if you read the last Hellboy in Love, or you live for Hellboy and Anastasia being adorable, which I will say I do love that panel of them holding hands. It is nice. It's great. It would be a fantastic issue 78 and a Hellboy ongoing. But that, then again, also points out the downside when you go for miniseries format, or at least having singles before going into trade. I feel like my verdict here is actually going to officially be not applicable. Because while this does say number 1 on the cover, this is most definitely not a number 1 issue. It is the first half in a good story, no doubt, that fans of Hellboy may really like, but that's why I think that it's worth reading if you're up to date with Hellboy lore, but it isn't going to be an issue that makes you want to become a Hellion, or whatever Hellboy fans are actually called. Well, with a title like that, I swear it's something that I would have backed on Kickstarter before, and yet, here it is under Dark Horse. So, let's check out Tramps of the Apocalypse #1, with the script, interiors, and cover art done by Alice Darrow, with interior assistance and the cover colors done by Hugo Blanc, and letters by Frank Svekovic. How do I properly discuss this delicately? Now, I will try and be positive, and I kind of am. I am the target demographic for this sort of genre. Sort of. I say sort of because, yeah, something called Tramps of the Apocalypse, with a premise that 3 busty women are driving through the post-apocalypse in their Beetle with a scrawny nerdy guy, sounds just like the dumb B-movie fun that I am absolutely the guy for. I am here for it every day. Oh, and they also get attacked by a muscled-up guy in a gimp harness saying he's going to make his master proud. Again, exactly what I'm looking for here. It's great. Even the art, I think, isn't bad, even if it does come off like a webcomic that got a comic binding, since these panels are pretty big, with not a lot to fill the void. It's the problem with going solely black and white with minimalist art like this that can really give off a coloring book feel more than a comic book feel. But then again, that's also where I sort of lose anything else to scrounge positively about this. The art is paint by numbers simple, with only a couple moments where it feels like more than 10 minutes was put into a panel, and it looks decent. It's not an ugly book. On the other hand, though, it's also a very bare book visually, with the same bareness in the dialogue. I don't mean that they don't use dialogue, oh, they do, but so much is said in this book without anything actually being said, and not in that fun Dave Mamet way. There's a couple of lines you can read that you know they're supposed to be humorous and a joke, and maybe if it was being performed, it could work, but it just falls flat reading it on the page. There's not enough comedy to make the gag about the virility spray not working on their wimpy random guy feel like a gag, like it's supposed to. I will be honest, and I am totally open to being called a pig here, but if you're going for the B-movie schlock feel that this really feels like it wants to have, especially with that title, especially with how some things go, you need that made-for-TV unsexy sexy cheesecake that made them great rentals to begin with. But I think that's where the book loses me personally. It is not bad, and I say that if you get a chance to read it, go for it, but the book honestly loses me because it has a great setup and a great premise for a top-tier, fun, stupid book. You have Joe D'Amato guys hunting for a dude being protected by 3 busty babes. The world and the feel almost writes itself if you've even just seen Cinema Snob reviews of these types of films. But it doesn't. It feels like a first draft, and not the fun kind of first draft where you go too over the top and you have to reel yourself in, but the other kind where you had a single idea that would make for a good 5-minute joke, but you can't get enough material to flesh it out to 20 pages. It'd be the most understandable way of why it doesn't feel like it's reaching for anything. It's not as irreverent as it should be, it's not as over the top as it pretends to be, and honestly, it's just kind of beige. It's just there, man. So yes, my official verdict is, sadly, ignore it. It has very little worth engaging with, and I was truly willing to meet this even 90% of the way. I won't ever say don't read something if you're interested in it, just so long as you understand that there's nothing I can see worth it, and I'm not saying you should waste the money on it. Oh, Mad Cave, I owe you an apology for misciting Speed Racer as a different company last week, because I'm a moron. So I already bought both covers I could for this, and let's hope it won't be less than stellar, so that we're at least all happy here. This is Orla, written by John Lees, art by Sarah Cantorino, colors by Dearblock Kelly, and letters by Lucas Gattoni. I think becoming an adult is siding with Orla in this, regardless of gender. Okay, so Orla is a plus-size gal who has a massive problem with the people she dates. The problem being, they're all kind of the shittiest version of guys you can think of, and most of the types you'd also find would be on a dating app. However, she does take one home, and naked on the bed is about to seal the deal. She then turns into a giant monster and eviscerates the jackass. Granted, she also really does believe in true love, and often feels she's helping out women by removing the scummiest guys from the dating pool. this isn't just the creature feature that we've seen on so many B movies. There's also a rom-com element where a really good friend asks her out, and she legit likes him, so, uh-oh. But that's also the date for next issue, and I really cannot wait to see it. So, right off the bat, I do know a couple people who are already mad about this book because it's a woman giving a bit of vor to guys that they agree with. And this is going to be a blanket statement. If you agree with the asshole guys, maybe take that as you may not be on the right side there. There's also the argument about how being a jerk doesn't deserve the death sentence, but let's be clear here. It's not that deep, bro. This is a rom-com mixed with a creature feature that reminds me a lot about indie comics like Slutburger back in the day, and I love it. It's not a thinking critique of the injustices perpetuated by men to women who merely want to exist and stretch those inalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Although it can be, but I'm going at this from a completely different direction. This is a comic book plot through and through, and I am absolutely here for it. While I'm not a straight-up rom-com person, it is a perfect co-genre for other things, like, say, a creature feature. Orla isn't a perfect gal, but she's a perfect lead for this story, which at least at the very barest bones can potentially be about letting your guard down when entering into a positive relationship. Or at least that's what I'm thinking, as that's the hook for the next issue. So, without going deep into the weeds on this, my verdict for this comic is, at the very least, pull it. At the very least, this book is worth being put onto your pull list, digitally or physically. Me personally, I like it both ways, but this is also another book that I really, really wish was on News Pulp for the physical. It just feels like it is a modern comics, that's with an X, and I love it. Oh yes, we've already covered the horrors of EC Comics, now let's go to the other half of the two most popular genres, science fiction, with Cruel Universe number 1. With 4 stories, so you know the drill, those creators are going to be credited when we talk about those parts. Although the letters for all of this is done by Rick Starkings and Comic Craft's Tyler Smith. So, first is In a Strange Land, written by Jay Holtham, art by David Rubin. Oh, we kicked this one right off with a bang as a bunch of vagina-faced squid aliens from what looks to be the cover of Bizarre Sex are observing humanity ready for their first contact. Instead of going down with the tentacles all gooey and showing, one of them goes into a pod so they can get all body snatchered and get themselves a body. He poofs down to Earth, saw the cops were supposed to be helpful from many of our broadcasts, goes up to them, gets beaten back, and then the crowd is also very nasty, nearly killing him before he manages to flee to his ship. Why? Is it because humans, especially in the 2020s, are hostile creatures? Or was it because he chose the body of a black man? The world may never know. The next story is Catch and Kill, written by Ann Nesenti and art by Kano. I love Ann Nesenti, so let's see how this goes. An online influencer has a dolphin-to-human translator, and on a live stream, when she's going to test it out and be all activisty, the camera crew accidentally plays some clips of dolphins being killed, causing a panic, and then the dolphins... what's the opposite of Free Willy? They dive deep, 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 all the way into the ocean. Sadly, the camera cord also has accidentally tangled with the dolphins, so the animal activist is... Sadly, the camera cord is also accidentally tangled with the dolphins, and the animal activist is now hoisted by her own petard. All the while, the same sort of live chat feed plays as you expected. It's a lot more poignant than the summary, I swear. Then we have The Fittest, written by Greg Pak, art by Charlie Adlard. Okay, so there's a deadly infestation on Earth, but luckily a bunch of people got off planet. However, the captain or boss of the ship is a dick, so when someone just coughs, he throws them out the airlock. His crew goes to mutiny, but the short of it is the ship explodes while the boss lives, although the infestation starts showing up on him. He may die, but another ship comes, yet the robot they send out to bring him back to the new ship sees the spores of infestation, so he gets left to die in space, while rich folk, okay, or at least people in semi-formal dress and champagne flutes, says, well, that's a shame, and then goes on to laugh and mock his death. However, on the robot's hand, there's some spores. Dun dun dun. And finally, originally published in Weird Fantasy number 22, we have Derelict Ship. And finally, originally published in Weird Fantasy number 22, we have Derelict Ship, written by William M. Gaines and Al Feldstein, art by Bernard Kringstein, and colors corrected by Inaki Alpiazu. Captain Vance K finds an old derelict ship with the aged remnants of the past on it. It is a fantastic read even then, and I really don't want to spoil how great it is reading it in the moment, but yes, definitely read this one. So, I love pulp sci-fi for the very same reason why I love pulp horror. It can do whatever it wants and reflect the world far better than even things set in contemporary normalcy. The first one is clearly about race, the second one is clearly about, well, maybe it's about how people don't pay attention to the world around them and trained behavior does not beat instinct. I don't know, you're going to have to read it and let me know. The third is that the callousness of capitalism truly has no benefits even if you become the boss. And of course, without spoilers, the fourth is, it may be a good idea to ship all anti-American red hats to their own planet to be Nazis on. I mean, it wasn't red hats since that story was in 1957, but you know, time is a flat circle and all that. I really don't want to get into the weeds, but I do really like all four of these stories to varying degrees. So my verdict is, as it always seems to be with EC Comics, collect it. Collect it means that you should have this both digitally and physically, have any variant covers you can find, and it should be put onto your pull list. Now, I am wondering what the next EC Anthology comeback's going to be, though. I kind of want them to go into the romance comics category. Hey, who do I have to talk to about this?
Hello and welcome to Sammy's Picks. I'm Sam Rossi, the Casual Comicist. Today's pick is DC's Cheetah and Cheshire. Today's pick is DC's Cheetah and Chester. Oh my god, I can't speak. I want to put a T there.
Chester Cheetah robs the Justice League.
But it's not Chester. It's Cheshire.
Cheshire. Not all.
Today's pick is DC's Cheetah and Chester rob the Justice the fucking you.
Cheshire.
Chester.
Cheshire.
Cheshire.
Okay. Now say cheetah.
Cheetah.
And
Cheshire.
Cheshire.
Stop. You're making me overthink this shit. Today's pick is Adidas.
No, it's not, actually.
Today's pick is DC's Cheetah and Cheshire. Today's pick is DC's Cheetah. No! Alright. Today's pick is DC's Cheetah and Cheetah and Cheshire rob the Justice League.
Thank you.
Alright. Before we jump into the deep end, let's acknowledge the artists. Writer Greg Rucka, artist Nicola Scott, colors by Annette Kwok, and letters because we believe that is a form of art by Troy Petery. And I had no idea what I was getting into when AJ told me to read this book. I'll be honest, I called him up and went, "Hey dude, did you know this dropped?" And he's like, "Oh, I meant to read that yesterday." So then he told me to read it before he had read it, and now here we are. And I know nothing about Cheetah, except for what was in Wonder Woman 84.
And you can't even say Cheshire.
And I have no clue who would Cheshire. I know. I suck. The story starts in the morgue. Cheetah feeds, which kind of reminds me of Werewood's feeding, but much neater.
Neater as in like cooler, or neater as in cleaner?
Cleaner, as in not so bloody and gory. Cheetah has a slight break from reality when we switch over to Chester kicking ass to get to a contract. At the end of that scrimmage, she opens the door and Cheetah's on top of the mark. Then the mark blows up. Because that was kind of cool. I gotta tell you, that was cool. They go and have pie and discuss a heist against the Justice League. Supposedly, all the Justice League's powers are in Pandora's box. Now, I'm intrigued. I need to know more. What is Cheetah's plan? What are the defenses? How are we getting around them? What's going to happen when they all find out this and Cheetah is betrayed? Tell me, where are we going with the story? Because I want to know. So mine is actually pull it. Read it, pull it, buy it. All of it. And I have no idea what's going on anywhere else in the universe, but in this moment, I like it. I'm Sam Rossi, the comic casualist. Sorry, no. The casual comicist. You always have the first time as a joke.
I'm leaving. Take care.
Bye, everybody. Hello and welcome, my friends. I'm Sam Rossi, the casual comicist. I've picked Dark Horse Comics Archie vs. Minor Threats, issue number 1. Before we get into the meat of the book, we are going to acknowledge the creative team. Script by Patton Oswalt, Jordan Bloom, and Tommy Hegel?
Well, it's League with an H.
Heg? Art by Scott Kabosh, and coloring by High Five, and letters, because we do believe lettering is an art, by Nate Picos of Blambot. I have no idea about the last two, be honest. What caught my eye was the cover for this comic. I wanted to know more. Well, honestly, what really caught my eye on it was Sabrina and Salem on the upper part of the cover. Okay, the top part is them looking down on what looks like, I'm not sure, going to town. Okay? And because of this, I'm a sucker for Sabrina Spellman. Melissa Joan Hart will always be my Sabrina.
That's true. I can't even read Salem in this without it sounding like,
Yeah.
what's his name?
I don't know, but yes. We open to Archie and Jughead, Betty, and Veronica yelling as the bus they are in is heading right towards, well, it looks like a facehugger. We learn that Sabrina is a stowaway on Glendale field trip to Twilight City. You know, that kind of reminds me of GTA. Isn't there like a Twilight City or something in that? Maybe it was Fast and the Furious.
Are you sure you're not thinking Twilight Town from Kingdom Hearts?
Might be it. We jump back 2 days to Sabrina talking to her aunts about the witches and warlocks All Hallows Eve ball and how they get Harvey Kinkle into the ball with her.
Sabrina likes Harvey.
Sabrina likes Harvey. Aunt Elder told her about a powerful mystical artifact that could get anyone into the ball. Obviously, Sabrina's on the hunt for this artifact and then finds a map to, well, it looks like Thanos' glove. Gauntlet, whatever. It's called the Five Fingers of Merlin. You know what? It would be a great rage metal band.
Five Fingers of Merlin?
Yeah.
Go with that fantasy bardcore?
Yeah. Sabrina is waiting at Pop's Diner for her goblin contact to get to Twilight City, and this is where we meet the Riverdale crew. Meanwhile, in East Redport, Twilight City, Frankie Fullis is cleaning up the mystics in her neighborhood before killing some mystic to make an example of what needs to happen if the other mystics do not clear out. Sabrina's contact is being arrested by Frankie's associates.
I like how you have arrested there and
Well, it's because he was air quote arrested. He thought he was going on a date with Sabrina and getting a milkshake with her. Sorry.
I still feel that milkshake sharing is in fact a colloquial for sex.
I always thought so.
Especially since it became much more of a fad post-prohibition. You know why?
So Sabrina uses magic to get in on the Riverdale field trip to Twilight City. Somebody finds the glove first, obviously. He's some type of magician, causing the first page to happen, so we're all caught up now. Sabrina saves the bus from killing anyone in it, leaves the bus to find whoever has the glove. The entire bus gets mugged by a cowboy mummy.
Sounds about right.
Reggie talks the girls into going to a bar, maybe? Archie is having issues about doing what's right. Archie follows the trio into the bar. Frankie thinks they are the new henchmen and pays handsomely for their services. Sabrina gets trapped in the Top Hat. Top Hat Man tells the group of magical beings that they could come out of the shadows and take back the city. What happens when the big bad is revealing his plan? The heroes come to rescue. Frankie shows up with Archie looking like a teen dressed up as Robin from Batman, circa Chris O'Donnell. And that's basically the book. I'm intrigued. I want to know more about the new magical crime syndicate. I have no idea who Frankie is. I have no idea who the minor threats are, so oops, I should maybe know more. I have questions. I do know the main characters from the Archie universe, except for Reggie. I couldn't remember his name. But Reggie's a dick. The story kept me wanting more. It's a great setup. We meet the important characters, a little backstory, set the hook, and you want to read it. It could be that I want more from a book with Sabrina and Salem on the cover. All the artwork, the lettering, the coloring, I have no complaints. The book overall? My verdict is, read it. I know I'm going to read the next issue. I want to know more. And I don't like leaving runs unfinished.
That's fair.
So, the only way to get these answers is to read it. I want to know more what's happening with the Top Hat. Is Archie going to continue the criminal lifestyle? Who the hell is Frankie?
I'm assuming all of that's answered in a minor threats comic from Dark Horse Comics.
Probably.
Only because usually when Archie's Archie, it's out of the Archie comics thing.
True.
So whenever he crosses over with someone, generally it's either directly a collab between Archie comics and insert here.
Like the Pussycat, Josie and the Pussycats.
No, Josie and the Pussycats is also Archie.
I know, man.
But like Archie versus Predator, Archie
Okay.
versus the Punisher, Archie versus Sharknado, Archie meets Jay and Silent Bob.
Poor Archie.
But I will say, this does my favorite thing that comics like this can do, is they keep the Archie comics art style for the Archie characters, but then when it cuts to the minor threats or like the cowboy mummy, stuff like that, it is the hyper detailed of that comic art. So you're seeing this really big clash, which can fail, but I think it works really good.
It did work really well here.
So your final verdict is read it?
My final verdict is read it. I want to know more. I may never know. I may have to go read minor threads to know more about them. But I do want to know how Sabrina's going to get out of the top hat. I want to know more about the crime syndicate. I really do.
Right.
But that's based on the fact that it's a crime syndicate.
So do you feel that this actually makes you want to check out, because you do want to know more. So this is less if you're a fan of Archie, read it, and more of hey, if you're a fan of Archie and you read this, you might want to get into this other thing. It does what a crossover is supposed to do, makes you interested in the other crossover thing.
Yeah, so it's that catch-22. Do I want to know more on the minor threats portion? But I really picked it because Sabrina.
No.
All right, how do we end this? We haven't figured that out yet, have we?
If you're blue and you don't know where to
go to, why don't you go where fashion sits? Putting on the Ritz.
I'm AJ Carey.
I'm Sam Rossi. Later, y'all.
With all of that, though, maybe I'm wrong, or maybe I missed a comic worth talking about this week. Let me know on the YouTube video version of this, or on whatever podcast platform you're listening on, or on social media at The Comic Archivist on Facebook, AJC_does-it-all on Twitter, and even on Blue Sky at AJC Does It All, without any underscores. I'm always open to being told how wrong I am about mainstream and indie comics alike. Don't forget to like, share, follow, subscribe, and do all the other stuff that I'm being told I need to do to keep this show going. More than anything, though, remember to stay golden inklings.